Hey, hello, and welcome to Michael's Minty Music for today. Today we review the Undertale Soundtrack, released in 2015 along with the game, composed and created by Toby Fox. It is pretty great. This is the very long track listing, 101 tracks on this one, which is why side 1 is super tiny there. All the tracks are really small. It's got 77 tracks on side 1 and 24 tracks on side 2, which is super unbalanced and a little strange actually. Most of the tracks are shorter, with some only being a couple of seconds, so the album does kind of look a lot bigger than it is, although it still is probably 2 or 3 hours long. Anyway, these are the tracks that added to my playlist, which is 65 out of 101, so about 65%. This album is pretty kind of iconic and definitely great. The game is pretty good and the music is definitely good in that context, but it's also pretty good out of context most of the time. There are some super ambient tracks here, but there are also some which are just kind of techno, really good melodies that sound great on their own. The flow is fine. The soundtrack basically covers the entire game. It flips tracks pretty consistently throughout the game. So it's a little long, and the fact that side 1 has over 70 tracks means that listening to the whole thing in one sitting is not really feasible. This album will wear down even the most dedicated listener, which is too bad because some of the later tracks would probably sound a lot better if you listen to them with fresher ears. Trying to do this whole album in one sitting is very long and not great. Still, the quality is consistent enough that you'll still have stuff to enjoy all the way to the end. It's just, you'll get burnt out probably. Despite some of the leitmotifs coming back again and again, there's still enough different songs running around that there's no real boring section of the album, which is kind of part of the problem. It's too good, too consistent, and in the end that results in it being too long. The genre here is kind of sort of chiptunes, techno and hard rock stuff mixed in with the more traditional ambient video game music filling in where necessary. Overall, a really good album, although I do wish it wasn't quite so long. Even chunking it up into sort of 3 or 4 discs instead of 2 would go a long way towards making it a lot more digestible. My favorite track here is definitely Megalovania. It's the most popular one, I know, but still probably the best. There are a couple of other here's that I really like. The song that might play when you fight Sans is another really great one, especially since it doesn't actually play in the game. But, there are so many really good tracks here that a handful of them could be my favorite on any day. As the only Toby Fox soundtrack I've heard, it takes the only spot in the rankings. However, in the overall video game rankings, it takes 4th out of 13 over the original Splatoon soundtrack, but under all the other ones. Still beats out most of the video game soundtracks. Definitely a top tier in this category, but I do think the Splatoon soundtracks generally end up flowing better and chunking up a lot better. Splatoon 1 just doesn't have the slightly higher level of quality that the others do, though, so the Undertale soundtrack I think is slightly better than that one. But definitely anything under that is not as good as these albums. Additionally, this album doesn't take my top spot from 2015. That goes to Smoke and Mirrors, Imagine Dragons' 2015 album, which is of a similar quality but much shorter, and a traditional album, which gives it a clear edge over Toby Fox here. Thank you for watching. Next up is Fall Out Boy's 2007 album, Infinity on High. I think I've seen this album cover before, so I'm interested to hear what they've got on it. I don't know where I saw it, so stay tuned for that, and as always, stay minty.